this feeling inside me organizer. I can't let it go, organize. I can't let go. I need you to know I'm still standing here.
Elias Ramirez grew up in a small fishing village where mornings began with the sound of boats scraping against the sand and evenings ended with the soft hum of the sea. Life was simple, quiet, and often heavy, but there was something inside the boy that glowed brighter than the world around him. It was music, soft at first, then louder, then impossible to ignore. He was raised by Lola Esperanza, a woman whose age showed in her hands but never in her spirit. She walked slowly, spoke softly, and loved fiercely. After losing her daughter, Elias' mother, she became both protector and guide. She knew Elias carried a different kind of burden. He was a child who felt everything deeply, a child who searched for meaning in every sound. Their home was a small wooden hut standing on tired stilts, weathered by years of storms. Inside, the walls were thin, but the love was thick. In one corner sat an old, second-hand radio, cracked, scratched, and held together with tape. It was a gift from a neighbor who once said, "It doesn't look like much, but someone might still find music inside it." That someone was Elias. Every night, when the world outside grew quiet, Elias turned that radio on and listened to stations from faraway places, voices he didn't understand, languages he couldn't speak, melodies he felt in his bones. One night, he discovered a voice unlike anything he had heard before. Deep. Warm. Soulful. It carried a kind of ache that felt familiar. The announcer called him Elvis Presley. From that moment, something shifted in Elias' heart. He listened to Elvis the way a thirsty man drinks water, slowly, fully, gratefully. He mimicked every note, every breath, every tremble in the voice. And in those moments, it was as if the world forgot to hurt him. It was as if the boy with empty pockets suddenly had everything. Neighbors sometimes paused outside the house, hearing a young voice echo through the wooden walls, soft, trembling, but unmistakably full of soul. They would whisper, "That boy, he sings like he's lived 100 lives." Elias didn't know it yet, but those quiet nights, that old radio, and that single voice from across the ocean were shaping a dream far bigger than the village he called home. A dream that would one day make the world stop and listen. As Elias grew older, his voice began to change, deeper, smoother, carrying the same warmth that once drew him to Elvis. What started as a quiet habit in a wooden hut slowly turned into something the whole village noticed. He sang at barangay fiestas, school programs, and small seaside gatherings where plastic chairs lined the sand and children danced barefoot under dim yellow lights. Yet no matter how beautifully he sang, life remained difficult. Elias and Lola Esperanza lived day to day, surviving on what little his grandmother earned from selling dried fish in the market. Some days were kind. Others were unforgiving. But through everything, Elias' voice became their source of hope, a reminder that even in hardship, something beautiful could bloom. His cousin Marco, a hard-working jeepney driver, often watched Elias perform. Marco was loud-hearted, optimistic, and the type who believed in miracles even when no one else did. To him, Elias wasn't just a good singer, he was born with a gift the world deserved to hear. But outside their small circle, people didn't always feel the same. Some said dreams like his were too big for boys from small villages. Others gently reminded him that the world was full of voices, full of talent, full of people who never got their chance. Their words were never cruel, but they carried a heaviness that could have crushed a weaker heart. Still, Elias kept singing. He sang at jeepney terminals where engines roared louder than applause. He sang in tiny cafes by the sea, where customers paid him in food instead of coins. He sang during power outages, with only the moon lighting his face. Each performance felt small, yet each one strengthened something inside him: courage, patience, resilience. Then one evening, while Elias was practicing near the shoreline, Marco approached him with an idea that felt impossible and terrifying. A global stage. A chance bigger than any he had ever imagined. Britain's Got Talent. Elias froze, not because he didn't want it, but because the dream was too big, too bright, too far away for someone like him. The cost of the journey alone felt unreachable. The fear of failing felt even heavier. But Marco believed. Lola Esperanza believed. Even the ocean wind that carried his voice across the waves seemed to believe. And sometimes, belief is enough to move a dream forward, one trembling step at a time. The moment Elias stepped inside the massive London arena, he felt as if the world had suddenly grown larger than anything he had ever known. Bright lights hung from the ceiling like distant suns, casting long shadows on the polished stage. Rows of seats seemed endless, stretching into the darkness like a sea he had never learned to swim in. He clutched the old pendant around his neck, a small locket that once belonged to his mother. It was his anchor, his reminder that he wasn't walking into this moment alone. Backstage, contestants practiced, laughed, cried, and waited for their dreams to take flight. Elias stood quietly, listening to the faint echoes of the stage beyond the curtains. Every sound, cheers, claps, footsteps, felt like a heartbeat inside his chest, too loud to ignore. Marco stayed close to him, steady as ever, keeping a hand on his shoulder whenever the fear threatened to swallow him. Lola Esperanza couldn't travel, but she had whispered a blessing before he left, promising that angels walk with those who carry pure intentions. When Elias' number was finally called, he stepped onto the stage as if stepping into another lifetime. Under the blinding spotlight, he looked impossibly small. The judges stared back at him, faces he had only seen on television, expressions unreadable, intimidating. And then there was Simon Cowell, the man who had shaped global music, now watching him with curious eyes. The arena fell into a thick silence. Elias took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and let the memory of his village guide him. The sound of waves, the voice of Elvis on the old radio, the laughter of children running past his door, the quiet humming of Lola as she cooked, all of it lived inside him, waiting to be released. When the music started, he didn't just sing. He opened his soul. The first note floated through the air, warm and trembling. It was raw, unpolished, and heartbreakingly honest. The arena shifted. Murmurs stopped. Hands paused mid-air. A strange stillness wrapped around everyone. Simon's expression changed first. His eyes sharpened, his breath caught, and for a moment, he froze as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Elias' voice carried the ache of distant shores, the strength of quiet battles, the purity of a heart shaped by struggle. And slowly, one by one, the judges leaned forward, drawn into a voice that felt both familiar and completely new. In that vast arena, a boy from a forgotten village made the world stop and listen. As Elias moved deeper into the song, something indescribable began to unfold in the arena. His voice, smooth yet trembling, gentle yet powerful, carried a weight that came from years of living quietly, hurting silently, and hoping endlessly. Each note felt like a confession. Each breath carried a story. The audience sensed it first. A hush fell over the room, as if thousands of people inhaled at the same time. Even the whisper of a camera shifting felt too loud for the moment. It was rare, almost impossible, for an entire arena to fall into a silence so complete that it felt sacred. But Elias had created it. That was when the judges began to feel the weight of his story. One judge pressed a hand to her chest, visibly overwhelmed by the honesty in his tone. Another blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. And Simon, known for his tough exterior, known for his impossible standards, sat frozen, eyes slightly glassy, studying Elias as if he had discovered something rare. A kind of ache gathered in the room. Not sadness, something deeper. Something human. Elias reached the final note, holding it longer than the music ever had. It wavered gently, like the last chord of a life-changing memory. And when it faded, the silence that followed was heavier, deeper, more emotional than any applause could ever be. In that silence, the judge's tears finally fell. A boy from a distant village had touched thousands with nothing but his voice, and everything inside his heart. The world did not return to normal after Elias finished his song. It couldn't. Something had shifted, inside the arena, on the judge's table, in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed the moment. When the applause finally erupted, it wasn't the usual loud cheer that filled talent shows. It was emotional. It was trembling. It was the kind of applause people give when they know they've just seen a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Backstage, crew members wiped their eyes discreetly. Contestants who once saw Elias as competition now saw him as a reminder of why they ever dreamt in the first place. Marco stood frozen, hands shaking, overwhelmed with pride. He looked at the stage as if seeing Elias for the very first time. Elias walked off stage slowly, almost unsure if the last few minutes had been real. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. His hands trembled. His voice, still warm from the performance, felt fragile in his throat. Yet his heart, for the first time in years, felt steady. Sure. Whole. By the time he reached the backstage hallway, his phone was vibrating non-stop. Notifications. Messages. Missed calls. Clips of his audition were already spreading online, faster than he could understand. People all over the world, Filipino communities, music lovers, strangers who knew nothing about him, were sharing his performance with captions like, "You need to hear this. This boy just rewrote history. The Filipino Elvis we've been waiting for." Across the ocean, in their small village, Lola Esperanza sat on a wooden bench in front of the old television. Her hands trembled as she held her rosary. When Elias appeared on screen, singing with his entire soul, her eyes filled instantly. She pressed her hand against the TV as if touching her grandson through the flickering light. She whispered a prayer, but it wasn't a prayer asking for anything. It was a prayer of gratitude. The entire village gathered around her home, cheering, crying, celebrating the boy who once sang beside the waves. Children ran outside, shouting his name like he was a hero returning from a long journey. Elders sat quietly, nodding, as if they knew this day would come. In London, reporters were already calling him, the Filipino Elvis who made the world feel again. In the Philippines, he became a symbol of hope. And in his heart, Elias carried one simple truth. Dreams don't ask where you come from. They only ask how deeply you believe.